Game of Thrones Season 2 is surprisingly better than Season 1, and I really liked Season 1. This is certainly now on my most favorite shows list, without a doubt, and I'm really excited now for Season 3 to come out. So, in case you're watching this slightly out of order, I started watching Game of Thrones. I don't have HBO, so I started watching it online because I'd heard some things, and this one day I was like, I'll give it a try, and then I got addicted. And I did my season 1 review. Now we'll go on to my impressions from season 2. I'm going to try to keep this short because you can go on a lot about Game of Thrones, and it's mostly because of all the different plot lines that are going. It's a show that's all over the place, and yet, even though it's doing that, it's surprisingly addicting. Sorry, I did just get back from the movies as well. Check out my A Good Day to Die Hard review. Not A Good Day to Die Hard. A good day to watch Game of Thrones instead. Anyway, so you can see a lot of the improvements over Season 1 are mainly due to its success of Season 1. They have a bigger budget now. They've kind of got a lot of the establishing the worlds done. Like, they don't have to explain the Night's Watch and all that stuff. They don't have to begin explaining how the politics of this world work. So some of the background, some of the character foundation stuff is out of the way, which took up a lot of the first, I'd say first quarter, at least, of the first season was almost this okay, here's kind of how these characters work and function before they even got into the plot. And most of the plot for Season 1 was to set up the plot for Season 2. Now we're into the full-fledged war, and we get much more of an impression that there is a conflict going on, although I think they try to tune down the idea of letting us know that battles are just getting over with right at the beginning, without saying, geez, we just attacked that town. Yes, we did. I think they kind of learned to not include that as much, but to simply imply that there are battles going on, because it's bringing attention to the fact that they didn't show it. Although they do try to, there was earlier in I forget which episode, but earlier in the season, they do show, the start of an attack on the Lannister camp. So we get a little bit of that. Of course, we also get a full-fledged battle, in this case, in the Battle of Blackwater. So, yay! As for the characters, we see them, of course, progress. It's interesting, we get to see Tyrion first finally get actual power and authority, and uses it wonderfully. Actually, an interesting observation with Tyrion is he's actually probably, out of all of the children, he's most like Tywin, and Tywin doesn't. It's interesting to see that tension between the two, because of how we get to see Arya through circumstance winds up as her cupbearer, she gets put right into the heart of the of danger by being really right at the threat of someone that's going to easily take her hostage if you knew who she was. Kind of actually does. But we get to see through that a bit more of his characterization, how he's smart. He's not all evil. I mean, no one's true. Well, as not as evil as a Lannister cannot be evil. But we get to kind of like him as a character. He's a much more practically minded person than most of the other characters, especially most of the other characters in his family. And in that regard, she's very much like Tyrion. Tyrion's much more practical minded. Just from the introduction when he comes into the place, it's why are you bothering torturing these prisoners? We're fighting a war. We need people to still work and do stuff. And he kind of points out, what's your trade? And the guy goes, blacksmith. And it doesn't, without saying it, this looks at the guy might we need a blacksmith in this time of war? You get prisoners, you have them work for you. It's much more efficient. Not that he's all goody-goodies, he's not like a Stark. But he seems to not be the sadist that a lot of the others are a complete narcissist. I mean, he's somewhat narcissistic, but he's concerned for his legacy and his family's legacy. So actually, kind of right there, somewhat attachment from narcissism. Of course, we see Joffrey continue to descend into his basically being a Caligula, only he gets a lot less sex than Caligula. Even when he's given 2 prostitutes, he still just wants to see one basically beat the other one to death. And then, of course, we see Dany. Interesting how they pull her storyline this season off, because you could very easily almost go to a complete reset with her character, but they don't. We see her assert herself, she becomes strong, she gets her destiny somewhat revealed, but again, she's in a situation where she has to, okay, yes, you have dragons, but they're not fully grown, and you're stuck out in the middle of the woods. Yes, there's potential there, but you still got a long way to go. But at the same time, they don't make her completely naive once again. They see her somewhat more assertive than she was at the start of last season. She knows she's in somewhat of a trouble, but we see her being more assertive than she was last season. And by the end, she becomes much more realizing of people playing politics with her and through her. You know, something that she couldn't learn with the Dothraki as much, because they don't do as much that politics and BSing as much. And she points that out with Xantos, whatever his name is, where she sees, they elude her battles. Interesting how she's going to now come to Westeros, because her dragons are still not fully grown. I mean, granted, when those things are even probably as teenagers, that will be enough right there to win her a massive army. Like, people will be like, oh shit, yeah, she's got dragons. I'm gonna side with the girl that can just rain fire down on everyone. They even kind of point out, like, Varys, who I believe is a supporter of the Targaryens, he kind of wants them to return. And Tyrion kind of both look at each other like, if she's got dragons, they have this scene like, they both don't want to admit it, but they kind of like their eyes and kind of tell them like, we're fucked if she has them. She's just gonna win. So I don't know why. She actually could have almost taken over that city court. Now, maybe in the books it's better explained why she couldn't have done that. But that city's council has been wiped out by Usurper. She's got somewhat mystical abilities herself now. I mean, maybe she could just recognize she doesn't have to play, or maybe she just doesn't want to do it. But she could have probably... That would have been a rather safe place. You had your retinue of guards then, to be protecting you. Cautiously wait there until the dragons are fully grown, and arrive with both an army and with your dragons and take over Westeros. Still, interesting to see what they're going to do. I think it's kind of clear, and that's probably even with the novels, we got to see, of course, the White Walkers for the first time in force. And an actual White Walker. And the idea that fire destroys these guys, but fire can't destroy a Targaryen. So I have a feeling that's got to come into play. And the dragons, I have a feeling this is probably going to be for the final book, which is still not done yet. In which they better kind of, I did some more reading, and apparently the basic plot line is laid out, like who's going to do what. That is kind of known, and even the producers of the show know where everybody's going. So I'd imagine if there's like a big concern, it'll probably depend on how this season goes. If they split book 3 into 2 separate seasons, which some people are saying they're doing, you obviously give more time for R.R. Martin to finish up his book, although it would probably have been better if you decide the 5-season run. It's a lot easier to achieve that. Because that's always the big risk. Like, what happens if the ratings drop enough that we only have 6 seasons? Or they need 6 seasons now to finish this series. Because I would love for this story to be fully complete. It's rare for that to happen. Like, Babylon 5 was probably the only show that actually got away with that. Where they actually had the seasons laid out, set up, overarching story, and they got to the end, and they went, okay, so it's over. I wish more shows would do that. I wish more shows would just figure out the story they want to tell, get there, and then when they get there, just go, okay, well, we had a good run. Maybe we'll think of something else to add at a later date, but We got the overall story we wanted. Battlestar Galactica needed that. Second to last season slowed down so much because they didn't have anywhere else to go with the story. They knew how you would end it, but they kind of didn't realize we're hitting the end. We should have known that we needed a plan out when we got to this point. I mean, you could argue maybe it shows the monotony of having to travel, but no. Like once they determined the series was ending, my God, that last season was great because they were able to actually get stuff done. They were able to address issues. But I digress. I'm going into general TV territory. Interesting, we see Theron Greyjoy, his betrayal, and how he gets pissed on by everybody. You kind of feel sorry, especially for season 1. I felt sorry for the guy, just because he's getting all. He kind of the Starks do treat him like crap on occasion. I really felt sorry for the guy. But then we see how he kind of just quickly turns. And it's not like his family's treating him much better anyway. Although he did grope his sister. Joffrey, the only good thing we can say about Joffrey is that once again Tyrion got to bitch slap him. Not only bitch slap him, but like he's trying to point out that, Joffrey, you can't act like you're a king, but that doesn't mean you can get away. Even brings up the point, like, the Mad King did whatever he wanted. Look what happened to him. I hope this character gets his comeuppance next season. Oh, he is, out of everyone, most of the other characters when they die, you're like, oh, there's so much more we could have done with that. Which is a great way to kill off a character, because you want it to have more of an impact. Here is a character you just want to see die. At any moment, you're like, yes, fucker's dead. I hate that motherfucker. Everyone hates Jed. They picked a perfect actor for that. Because he looks like a spoiled brat. And he's got that face that they kind of tell. If you got slightly annoyed with this guy, you kind of want to have him punched in the face. So, good casting. Increasingly good. They did a very good job with this guy, with the casting of that actor. And I hate to say, oh yeah, great actor. I love your job. I want to punch you in the face so hard. Again, Jon Snow up in the north, not doing a whole lot again. Last season we're sitting on the wall. Yeah, we're sure sitting on the wall. This season we're kind of walking through the woods. Then again, we do end, spoiler alert, with finally we see the White Walkers, and maybe we'll finally get some stuff. He'll do something next season. I mean, I guess this is the advantage of having something written out where certain characters are going somewhere, so you need to follow them. So I'm hoping we'll get to see why we're following Jon Snow. Why we're seeing... why we're following Dany, because so far over to the overall plot, they haven't done much. They've been playing in the backgrounds. I mean, Dany a little bit more so. She's had a little bit more interesting character arc that she's going through. And I guess it's easier for us to see what her impact will be as she becomes more assertive. Let's face it, I mean, they kind of outright say that because dragons have returned, magic is now returning, and the fact that she's kind of the source of that. We can kind of see much more that she's obviously got to be playing some sort of big role in this world, and that she does have somewhat of a much more legitimate claim. After all, she's kind of entering when everyone's somewhat wondering who's really in charge, what type of people have the true claim of the throne. Kind of a shame she didn't think of jumping into a fire with dragon eggs like 5 years earlier. Because maybe those dragons would have been grown up enough, and that way she could then come and just wipe out everybody. Which, by the way, they're also hinting more at the fact that, yes, she's going to be riding those dragons in the battle, because now we learn that through Arya's telling us it wasn't just the original king of the Seven Kingdoms that rode dragons, it's his sisters too, because of their bloodline. Which I wonder if they'll go in and explain that, or they'll just leave it like, we don't want to waste the time to describe it. Speaking of wasting time to describe things, though, Robb's relationship with the nurse chick. they really needed to spend a little bit more time on that to explain why he decides to take her as his wife. I think they do a lot of implying. Like they imply that they go on that road trip, and we see like the end of that walk. That they get moments where they're falling more in love, but it does seem, I think, for the audience, just because they couldn't cram in those character scenes, much more rash, and makes us go like, really? You're gonna betray that promise to marry the one girl? Again, it kind of goes into the fact that the Starks are kind of used to show how good characters can really mess things up. You know, we had, of course, Lord Stark be so honorable that he basically causes a civil war to happen where he didn't have to. At any point, he could have either backed Renly, which would have helped out, not trusted Littlefinger as much, or just had gone to Caesari and just go, you know, I can't at this late hour not tell Robb that his son is not his son. You know, something like he could have somewhat buried the hatchet right there and just went, well, Robb's sitting there dying. Your son has been raised to be king. It seems to be his last wish. Fuck it. Fine, I'll keep the secret. They could have avoided the entire Civil War that way. Although, granted, might have changed his mind once he saw what Joffrey became. But at the very least, he could have been more prepped to, you would have had the time to, like, okay, this guy's gonna look, okay, time to reveal that you're not actually, your father's son. I'll send a little thing to Stannis, he'll show up with some guys. Interesting to see Stannis and his arc, and of course, the whole, here, okay, this is what I'm gonna say with Stannis, because there's, of course, the one scene with the demon fetus birth. Which, that came out of nowhere. You're like, what the fuck? Whoa. But, he has that meeting with Renly before that happens, and he kind of goes, Renly says, I'll make you my heir. But no one likes you. You can't really lead the kingdom that way. Which he kind of has a point. But if you had the ability to kind of assassinate him like that at any time, why don't you just go, okay, team up with him, take the kingdom, get to proclaim the heir, and then have him killed? Would have probably worked out a lot better. Honestly, if he had done that, he would have been crowned king, no problem. The entire movie would have been over. Plot, because Renly at that point was making a secure alliance with the Starks. As soon as King's Landing had been taken, they would have marched to support and join up with the Starks army, in which case Renly had, 5 times the amount of troops the Starks did, and the Starks are already winning the war in the North. That would have been real. Basically, if he just made that one little thing, just decide to play a little bit more politics. Again, this is kind of showing you, interestingly, kind of the underlying theme I'm picking up from the show is play politics and it'll be better for everybody. You will not get people killed. You will end wars. Just play the political game. In fact, the best characters in here, the characters that we tend to sympathize the most, are the ones that play the political game. Because they tend to get, like, they might be backstabbing bastards at occasion, but they tend to keep the overall land in relatively good order. It's a really interesting, because most of the time it's people that play the politics are bad. In this one, it's really those who just want to play politics, avoid problems for everybody. Play politics. Politics is good. Tyrion's a perfect example of that. He plays it well, and he's able to keep stuff running quite well. It keeps a bit of a check on his nephew, somewhat, from being absolutely crazy. And he kind of makes people with politics know how to run things because they have to be smart. Hence, even pointing, when the first time he was put in charge of cisterns, they ran better, never ran better. We get the sense that, like, how he's running the kingdom is running very, very efficiently. So, it'll be very interesting to see. Not a whole lot more to talk about. Well, we had of course, the Battle of Blackwater. Very interesting, very exciting. It shows what they can do. I'm hoping next season they show us at least 2 battles. Give us 2 battles. Come on. Even if once is like a little bit of a minor battle. Give us something. I mean, you're going to have to match that in some way. But it does show, and I think it's a good establishment for the next season because we now know, or at least they have now the experience of how to film a battle. And again, it's supposed to be with like thousands of guys, but they were able to shoot it with only probably a couple hundred extras. You can do that stuff, guys. You can do it. Anyway, it's going to be very interesting to see season 3 how it goes. You have Tyrion now has had his power taken away from him. He's no longer Hand of the King. His buddy Bronn is no longer the commander of the guards. And his sister basically had him assassinated. Or tried to have him assassinated. Very interesting where he's going to go with this. And he kind of, said, you could just leave the city. He could, take himself, go on to Casterly Rock and just sit out the rest of the war there. But he likes playing the political game. So he wants to stay. He wants to somehow get his power back. It'll be interesting to see how he does and handles that. Again, it'll be very interesting to see how this whole thing with Robb marrying that woman will play. Because, well, we saw what happens when a house has an alliance and then they break it somewhat when he had the Tyrells team up with the Lannisters to save King's Landing. Something similar going to happen? Don't know. And then, of course, he's also got the Greyjoys attacking. How is that all going to play out? How is that war that they seem to be launching there? How is that going to affect the rest? And also, what do the Greyjoys plan on doing? Because they're like attacking, but they don't want to keep King's Landing because it's too far inland. Like, you guys do realize that if you're taking stuff on the mainland, you're going to have to switch tactics. You're going to have to become a land force. They don't seem to be processing that. I mean, maybe that's ultimately their big flaw, is they're so obsessed with their sea power that once they get land resources, they can't defend them. There's another one. If Theon was a bit of a smarter character, he probably could have pointed out, we can't attack the north because it's a land power. And if we wind up winning and seizing it, well, most of the territory is north of us. The Lannisters, or whoever winds up taking over that throne to the south, is going to want to reassert their authority by reconquering the north. If we teamed up with the Starks, we have a mutually supporting position where both are going to be independent kingdoms and are not going to want to tolerate attacks from the south. And if we attack the north, we're going to have to send our armies to the north and to the east. Which means it leaves the actual Iron Islands very open to attack. But if we take out the Lannisters, our armies will be deployed to south of us at Casterly Rock. We'll get much more resources. The north will protect our assets, or the north will, one, keep us relatively safe from not being worried about being attacked from that direction, and will come to our aid if we need them. It would make only perfect sense that you're more natural, if you want to expand the kingdom, it's to go south in this position. Attacking them, not going to be that helpful. That's what I would argue, but again, it's you can see why that character and why these characters don't argue that. It's the same way why, in real life, leaders make bad strategic decisions, especially in the medieval era. Alright, so Season 2 is awesome. Love the show. Continue to check it out. I think I've said more than enough on that. Excited for Season 3, but I probably will not be able to keep up really as much, so don't expect, like, when Season 3 comes out, be like, Episode 1 review Season 3, because unlike, The Walking Dead, I don't have HBO, so I'm going to have to watch this I'll either have to wait till they pop up online or catch it on at a friend's house. So, or a friend's house that has like Hulu Plus or something. So I'm not going to be doing like reviews for every episode. I'll probably maybe if I do catch all of season 3, I'll do like a season 3 review probably. But that's it. Stay tuned, of course, for The Walking Dead this weekend. I'll of course be reviewing the next episode. Movie reviews, as usual. I believe my Die Hard video is now up, so please check that out. Looking a little dead for the upcoming release schedule. Dark Skies is probably the only other movie I want to catch. I mean, I'm debating between Dark Skies and Snitch. I think I'm leaning a little bit more to Dark Skies because it's an alien abduction horror movie. And I'm interested to see if they're able to play that well, like play it better than The Fourth Kind. Which, I still don't like The Fourth Kind. Mainly because I'm going to do an alien abduction movie. I know exactly what to call it, The Fourth Kind. I had a deal for a much better movie with the same topic. Fourth Kind, yeah, bad and done. One or two nice things in there, like the theme with the owls was kind of okay, but we'll see if the Dark Skies is a little bit better. And of course, you got in March, we've got both Oz, Great and Powerful, and G.I. Joe. So we've got those to look forward to. So that's pretty much what's coming up on the... Oh yeah, I'm playing Aliens Colonial Marines. Once I get far enough into the plot, or into the game, I will probably post up a review on that as well. Let's see if I get another level or 2 done tonight. So far, there's going to be a lot of nitpicks about the plot, and, well, I'll better talk about that, because it's more like they changed an element from what I think was the original plan, which would have made much more sense, but I'll save that for the actual review. So please stick around, like the video if you liked it, subscribe, pass it around, appreciate it much. Bye.